I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Welcome to Money in the Morning, aka Economic Elevation. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and in case you don't know, Money in the Morning, Economic Elevation training is where we get together every morning and we practice the art of financial consciousness. Financial consciousness is part of the B1 culture. B1 means Black first. Black first means we put ourselves at the top of our priority list. Black first means that we make sure that our children and our people are going to be ahead of the curve and that we're going to be able to win any battle that's put before us because we are the greatest. We have everything that we need to be as successful as we want to be, and I put everything on that. Everything that we need to know about our Black economics, we already know these things. It's really a matter of the implementation. So I'm here in Ghana right now. This is our B1 trip to Ghana. Some of you are actually here with me right now. And the reason I'm doing, in case you do our Money in the Morning class, you'll know that I have been unable to make class because the time zone is just so inconvenient for what we normally do. Literally, we meet every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, and literally tomorrow we're gonna have to leave at 5 a.m. Ghana time, which is like midnight Chicago time, and we're not going to be back in time for me to do Money in the Morning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing these early if I can, or maybe a little later, and I'll be texting out the link. If you're not on the text list for this class, just text the word morning to the number 87948. Text morning to 87948. Now, what I want to tell you guys about is something that got my attention. I learned a lot about a couple of people that I've heard of and that I knew about, but I admit I wasn't an expert on either one of these individuals. But I went to the house of W.E.B. Du Bois, and at some point, and I got to talk about him. I mean, his name is just like mine. His name is Du Bois. I jokingly told my wife, I said, he was Du Bois. I am the Bois. I'm playing. I'm kidding. I'm not anywhere near this man. He's an extraordinary giant of his time and beyond, and just an extraordinary scholar. And there were so many things as I was going through this, as I was meditating on him and another great leader in Ghana named Kwame Nkrumah. I said, okay, let's really study this. Let's really look at what happened. Let's look at what they did right, what could have been done better, and let's figure this out for B1 culture because the goal at the end of the day is for us to realize that we have been colonized. And let me ask you, though, let's start with this. Give me a yes or no in the chat if you agree with me. Would you agree that African American people are among the most colonized people on the planet? Would you agree that we've got probably the worst cases of Stockholm syndrome of anybody? Give me a yes if you would agree that colonization hit us probably the hardest because we were right under Master's thumb. We was right there next to him. He was right there up our butts, on top of our necks, and he did this for hundreds of years. So colonization, a lot of the symptoms of being a colonized people have heavily impacted African American people. In order for you to free your life, you're going to have to free your mind. For you to free your family, you're going to have to free yourself from the chains of generational curses. If you're ever going to be really free, you got to know what freedom even looks like. Some of us don't even know. Some of us ain't free because we don't even know what freedom looks like. We don't know where it's at. We don't know how to obtain it, and then we don't have the discipline to pursue it. That's just the reality of it. And so here's the deal. So let me break down some of this for you, and I'm going to talk about Kwame Nkrumah, and also not only did I study him and Du Bois, but I studied the relationships between Nkrumah. Well, Nkrumah was the first president of Ghana. He was the great liberator. So he was an extraordinary leader, extraordinary black man, amazing guy. And I saw his picture. And the minute I saw his picture, I told my wife, I said, I don't know why, but when I saw his picture, I started to cry on the, I like tears came down my eyes because I said, that's a serious looking man. He's done some serious things, and I'm just really connected to his experience. So, anyway, I didn't just study him, and I didn't just study Du Bois. I studied the relationship he had with Du Bois, and then I studied the relationship they had with other significant figures like Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey and Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington was the founder of the National Business League, which is now run by my very good friend Dr. Ken Harris, who has a PhD in economics and Africana studies from Michigan State University, and also the president of Tuskegee, was started by Booker T. Washington, is coming to the All Black National Convention. So a lot of these things are going full circle. And then you can even throw in Muhammad Ali, who's actually a second cousin of mine by marriage from my home city of Louisville. So I was really looking at these relationships, looking at these connections, trying to understand how to view this and saying, okay, what does this mean for the B1 movement, and how do we learn the lessons from that, but also learn how to do things better. And so here's what I want to kind of break down for you in terms of a few overarching themes that I picked up in the life of Nkrumah. Okay, so one of the things about Nkrumah was I looked at his life, his education, his training. He was trained in the United States. I think he went to Lincoln University, and then he went to the University of Pennsylvania, where he was exposed to a lot of ideas that connected to Marxism and socialism. Now, Marxism and socialism are ideologies that have some very good ideas. I love listening to my friends who are Marxists because there are great ideas within Marxism, particularly when it comes to critiques of capitalism. The Marxists are very good at pointing out the fact that capitalism can be racist, that capitalism can be exploitative, that capitalism can lead to the downfall of a society. There's no question about that in my mind. I sit and I just listen and observe and absorb. I was at a revolutionary bookstore in Harlem about a month ago, and I sat and I just listened to the lady talk the entire time, and she had no idea I was a finance professor. And I said, I didn't tell you that because I didn't want you to assume that I was a capitalist just because my doctorate's in finance. And in fact, but I'm not a Marxist either. And so here's the thing. Here's the first thing with Nkrumah that I wanted to kind of bring up. So Nkrumah eventually becomes president of Ghana. He does a great job of having a broad Pan-Africanist vision. He talks about the unification of Africa. And give me a guess if you've heard about it, Kwame Nkrumah. Yes or no? Did you learn about him in school? I want to know where we are on this. And then so some of y'all know a lot about him. And if I say something wrong, I hope you'll forgive me in advance. I don't know everything. But also, if you don't know him, let me know that too, because I want to know how many of us know. I think more of us should know who he was because what he did in Ghana was extraordinary. Ghana was the first country to break out of colonialism. He became that president, and then he also had a unifying vision that he shared with some other great leaders at that time, particularly Patrice Lumumba and others, about the unification of Africa and the unification of Africa, which will eventually occur. It's going to happen. It's going to be extraordinary. It's going to be one of the greatest events in all of human history. It's going to lead Africa down the pathway of becoming the wealthiest, most powerful continent on the planet. I was going to say nation because actually one of his visions was to create the United States of Africa. Obviously, Africa is not a country. Africa is a continent, and we know these things. We're going to Ghana this year. Next year, I think I want to take everybody to Ethiopia, and we're going to try to incentivize you to join us. I hope you guys will join us. We don't want these just to be fun little vacations, which everybody's having a blast here, but I want you to learn. So I did a lecture right there on the spot with the people that were there, and we broke down the lessons that we learned that day. So he eventually gains power in Ghana, and of course the CIA steps in eventually, and the CIA takes him out of power. The point where the CIA took him Nkrumah out of power was when he was actually out of the country, and so he ended up being in exile, and then everything kind of went downhill from there. But he's recognized in a major way in this country for good reason because this man did some extraordinary things. He had an extraordinary vision. He had some partners like Patrice Lumumba who also felt the same way. And of course, the CIA took down Patrice Lumumba. So what I did was I said, okay, let me process some of this and try to think it through and try to figure out what B1 people, because we're leaders, we're great, we're great as well. This is our time. This is our time to be great. What is it that we can learn from this that we can apply so we can know how to move forward? So let me give you a couple of things that I want you to understand in terms of why Nkrumah was such a threat and why the West worked so hard to take him down. Number one, when you push for African unity and economic independence, what you're doing is you're directly threatening the interests of European nations. You're threatening the interests of America. Why? Well, because Africa has been a place that it's been a commodity that so many people around the world have been able to exploit. So many countries literally go into Africa as if it's their own, and they've been dependent on these resources. France, for example, if Africa stopped supplying France, then France would just crumble financially. If you know the history from reading books by Dr. Claude Anderson and others, Dr. Claude Anderson broke it down very well, where he said that before they sort of figured out how many resources were in Africa, Europe was pretty broke. And when they went over there and got all the gold and all the minerals, Europe actually became extremely wealthy because of that. And so when you threaten the economic interests of another nation, then at that point you're going to be dancing with the devil. At that point, you're going to have ships on your shores. You're going to have to fight military battles. And this goes back to something that I've taught you all about when it comes to Black Wall Street. I've explained to you all that having wealth is not enough. Building wealth is hard enough, but it's not just that, but it isn't enough. After you build the wealth, you have to defend the wealth. So this is not just true for a nation. This is true for an individual. This is true for a family. This is true for anybody. Anybody in here who's a wealth builder, which all of you are. Give me a yes if you're a wealth builder. All the wealth builders, raise your hand. If you are building wealth, I want to warn you that when you build that wealth, someone's going to try to take it. Maybe someone will sue you. Maybe someone will try to rob you. Someone will try to scam you. Someone's going to try to take it. So your ability to defend what you have is just as important as your desire and ability to accumulate what you have. So when Nkrumah and others were threatening the economic interests of the United States, then at that point, you know you're going to be under attack. The CIA is going to show up. And what happens sometimes, this is something I want y'all to think about, is I think that what happens is this when we get into scenarios where we have what they call, I think they call it messianic leadership, where everyone just admires one guy and one guy becomes the guy and he becomes the leader, the King Kong consciousness of everything. Umar Johnson calls himself King Kong consciousness, right? Which I think is honestly kind of immature. And you get this one guy who's kind of the big leader. Well, then what happens is you have everybody focus on one big target. When that one big target gets taken out, then the whole movement can die. And so one of the things that I would say that you can learn from leadership of the past and moves by, entities to take down that leadership is that you're not better off when you have one person that's the leader of everything. You're not better off when you have one figurehead, one symbol. They can kill a Malcolm X. They can kill a Martin Luther King, which they did. They can kill a Kwame Nkrumah, which I feel like they did for the most part. Not directly, but you get the point. They can kill a Patrice Lumumba, which they did. They can kill one guy. So what has to happen is that if you want your black leadership to ever work, it has to become decentralized and it cannot be driven by this idea of having this one figure that everybody worships. You can have your figurehead, but you have to have institutional leadership because it's harder to take down an institution than it is to take down an individual. Also, it's really hard to take down an idea. If an idea is implemented and it's decentralized in an appropriate way, then you can't destroy it because you might kill one person, but one person isn't gonna stop. One monkey's not gonna stop the show. So one of the things that I've talked to you all about in terms of black economic power, as we build the next generation of economic strength, it's going to resonate for the next 400 years. As we take the lead as B1 people on economic intelligence, which is going to happen by the year 2070. 2070 is the year. It'll be after many of us are gone. One of the biggest goals that I have is to systematize economic intelligence so that if they kill me tomorrow, that's okay. They could kill me tomorrow, but these ideas are not going to die. The things that you and I have talked about 10,000 times are not going to die. The advanced financial techniques that we've broken down systematically on a multitude of scales for the last several years, that's not going to die. The strategies that you're teaching to your children, the things that you've implemented into your lives, that's not going to die. I know for a fact that a lot of you are making more money because you're talking to me. I know for a fact that a lot of you are doing better financially because you're talking to me. A lot of you are much more financially secure because you're talking to me. We're jumping in the stock market. You've been jumping into real estate. I've been breaking it down for you in very simple ways, using my whole PhD to make sure that we achieve one goal. And one goal is to decentralize everything. They can kill me. I don't care. My life does not matter relative to the scope of what we're trying to do. So having the Messiah is a flawed leadership model that has existed in the black community for a very long time. And it's not one that's ever going to get us to where we want to get to because all they have to do is figure out who the one guy is that they got to kill or discredit or destroy or put in jail. And then next thing you know, everything dies. You have to know black leadership lives at home. Black leadership lives with you. How many of y'all are parents? Any parents in the room? Let me know if you're a parent. If you're a parent, then you're a freaking black leader, if there ever was one. If you're a mother, you gave birth to that little sucker. You a black leader. You're the first teacher. You're a father. You're the head of that freaking household. You're a black leader. You're a teacher. You got a whole classroom full of kids. You are a black leader. You're a football coach. You are a black leader. You're a mentor. You are a black leader. You're a pastor. You are a black leader. What we need to understand about black leadership is that black leadership should not be something that is rare. We should have 100,000 black leaders so they don't know which one to kill. They'll be like, damn, we're gonna need a nuclear bomb to take out all this black leadership because there's too many of them. So the decentralization of leadership is really important because what happened with Nkrumah, and again, I want to make it clear that none of this is a critique. None of it's a critique. I can't do half of what that man did. So don't ever think that I'm criticizing. I'm just pointing some things out. Is that when he was away, when he left to go to Vietnam, that's when the tanks rolled into Accra and they were able to take over everything. When he became the guy, they said, okay, if we get rid of the guy, then we can kill the whole energy behind the movement because everybody's focused on following the guy. And what I would have said to Nkrumah really is I would have said, look, man, you're a human being and you're one person. You're one. If they discredit you, they remove you, they kill you. All this is over. So what we got to do is we got to systematize some process to ensure that you've got loyal, decentralized leadership, so that if you go abroad, everything's going to be held down. Right now, how does that apply to you? How does that now? I'm every single lesson I'm gonna apply directly to you. So make sure you understand this. So when you're running a black-owned business, one of the things I need you to stop doing is stop running your black-owned business as a one-man show. Stop running your black owned business in a way where you are the alpha and the omega of every single thing that happens in that company. Stop running the business as if it's just a one person thing because millions of black businesses die, billions, maybe trillions of dollars in black wealth gets lost because nobody ever took the time to train children and to train others to hold the fort down when you get old, tired, sick, or dead. Nobody prep you don't you're not prepared the next generation. You're 80 years old working like a field slave, doing all the work yourself because you didn't understand the importance of succession planning and training others. Or if you have a business and you take a vacation, the whole business goes south. Anybody seen that? Anybody got it? Ever been a part of a business like that where one person takes a vacation, the business can't run? Do you understand? This goes back to the model that we teach in our Black Business School for Children, which is the STURDY model. STURDY stands for Systems, Technology, Entrepreneurship, and Relationships and Delegation for the Youth. STURDY, STERDY, Systems, Technology, Entrepreneurship, Relationships, Delegation for the Youth. I'm not going to go through the whole sturdy model now. If you want to go through some of our, we have a training called How to Turn Your Child into a Millionaire. It's at kiddyboss.com, Kiddie, kiddyboss.com. And also, if you want to get access to some of our children's material, just text the word youth to the phone number 87948. Text youth to 87948. I'll send you links to our flashcards for kids, workbooks for kids, all that. But getting back to that, I want you to focus on the word systems. I'm not sure. I'm really be curious to know what sort of system Nkrumah had because you're doing big things, you're going to attract big enemies. In China, they have a saying that says the fattest pig always gets slaughtered. So when you are doing something different, you're going to become the fattest pig. Someone's going to try to slaughter you. When you have new ideas, you become the fattest pig. Someone's going to try to slaughter you. When you become the man, you're the fattest pig. That means people are going to aim their infrared right at your forehead. And one of the things that's interesting to me is that when this happens, when we start a movement and one guy becomes the guy because we believe that only one guy can be the guy, and it reduces the ability to collaborate. Like I still don't understand why Du Bois, Garvey, and Booker T could not get on the same page. That's absolutely insane to me because they're not the same. They didn't have the same skill set. There's absolutely no reason Du Bois should have been hating on Garvey. It made no sense at all. I get it though. I understand it was that was the time they probably didn't see their role in history. But why in the hell would W.E.B. Du Bois think that the world's better off if he gets rid of Marcus Garvey? He can't do what Garvey does. Du Bois did not. Du Bois was a scholar. He was a scholar. He was a thinker. He was a great man. He's a beautiful Pan-Africanist. But Du Bois probably could not create a job if it saved his life. Garvey knew how to create jobs. He built major corporations. He knew how to raise money. Booker T knew how to build factories. Booker T knew how to grow crops. Booker T knew how to build institutions. Du Bois ain't got no institution without the white man. He was at Harvard University. That's all he knew. He knew how to be affiliated with an institution, but he didn't know how to create one. He knew how to get a job, but he didn't know how to create a job. So what you got to understand is that in every movement, you need your economics. You need the people that know how to get the jobs, but you need the people who know how to create the jobs too. You need the scholars, but you also need the people that know how to build a factory, build a house, do the plumbing, do the carpentry, what other skill sets are required to build a nation. You need all of that. So I did not understand. I was sitting in Du Bois's house and I was like, man, like what happened here? Like why would you go out of your way to destroy Marcus Garvey? What was going on here, man? This smells like ego to me. It really smells like ego. And again, I don't know though. I'm not an expert on any of this, but I just sat there and I said that don't even make no damn sense. But anyway, let me get back to it. Let's get back to Nkrumah though. Nkrumah, because so this is so with Nkrumah, I would say the decentralized leadership would have been beneficial to him because also the other thing about the rebellion that happened in his own country, there it got to the point where because the money wasn't right and also because certain problems were allowed to fester, he didn't have the loyalty of people to sort of have his back or warn him that the coup was coming. I think that again goes back to that messianic leadership where you got the Messiah and sometimes certain issues don't get addressed, and certain people are not empowered because it's all about the guy. And then next thing you know, something goes wrong, and then they just take down the guy. And so here's another thing too about Nkrumah that I wanted to sort of discuss. He had a deep, deep, deep connection with Marxism. Now I got a bone to pick with that. Too many of your damn black leaders have stepped out as trained Marxists. The Black Lives Matter movement, all the women that led that movement were trained Marxists. Black Panther movement, heavy on Marxism. Nkrumah, Marxism. Du Bois, socialism, Marxism. Marxism and socialism, nothing wrong with those ideologies. Nothing wrong with socialism, nothing wrong with Marxism, nothing wrong with communism. They are all ideas that have value, tremendous value. Lord knows I ain't gonna sit here and defend capitalism. You can't defend capitalism. Capitalism is a crazy economic beast. But here's the problem. When you align yourself in these liberal versus conservative debates, these right wing, left wing discussions, this Democrat Republican gangster shit, when you align yourself too much with one side or the other, you're automatically taking on a bigger enemy. Do you understand? If I live in a neighborhood and the Crips live over here and the Bloods live over here, and I say, I want protection, I'm going to go be a Blood. So, on one hand, I'm gaining more support than I've ever had, more protection than I've ever had. But now I've also got more enemies than I've ever had. Does that make sense? Do you get what I'm saying? So here's the deal. I was researching and trying to figure out how did Malcolm X feel about Marxism. He had a healthy respect for Marxism, but he did not align himself with Marxism. Do you understand? He didn't come in and say, "Yeah, I want to be a Marxist," because he understood, similar to y'all Democrat Republican Negroes, that that ain't nothing but another damn plantation for you to sit on, and eventually their interests are going to overweigh your own. Their agenda is always going to trump your agenda. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. It's okay for you to be whatever you want to be, but I need you to be black first. One of the things specifically when I did the research on Malcolm was Malcolm specifically said that the ideology of the black community has to be black first. It cannot be Marxist first. It cannot be capitalist first. It cannot be Democrat first. It cannot be Republican first. It has to be black first. So if Marxism is a tool that you use to be black first, then I can support that. But if you come in and you are, and the Marxism is trumping your blackness to the point where you have been trained to alienate every black person who's not a Marxist like you, then sit your raggedy ass down and learn who the hell you are. Stop trying to go fight other people's battles because one mistake that Nkrumah made, in my opinion, I stick by this. Again, I'm not no expert. I could say something wrong, but I'm gonna stand on it with 25 toes down. Is that his affiliation with the communists and the Marxists and everything else caused him to have the biggest enemy imaginable, which is the United States government and the CIA. You've aligned yourself with some people who obviously did not show up and defend you when them suckers came in and took you down. Now again, I'm armchair quarterback in here. I did not have to be president of Ghana. It's a very delicate situation. But when I read that he was a Marxist, I said, "Oh, I bet you that's why they got him." because that's how they got that was what they were doing to Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam became affiliated with the communists. They fight the Vietnam War. He destroyed his country because of that. They dropped more bombs on the small country of Vietnam than all the bombs dropped on every country by any country in all of World War II combined. You had brothers fighting brothers, sisters killing sisters right there in Vietnam. People that used to love each other fighting each other in a civil war, just like you Democrat Republican Negroes who are not talking to your own cousin because he voted for Trump, or you hate your sister because she voted for Biden. That's crazy to me. I'm sorry. I don't want to offend anybody, but I got to tell you the truth. I think a black first ideology has to mean that you're black first before you're anything else, because colonialism divides us. It makes us pick a side, and we let people box us in and put us in a package. Don't be no package Negro. Learn how to be free. Just say, you know what? Some days I wake up and I feel like a Democrat. Some days I wake up and I might sound like a Republican, but that's okay because sometimes the best idea for me on that day is a Republican idea, but then tomorrow I might be a Democrat again. So you can't depend on me for nothing. Yeah, they like they say these hoes ain't loyal, these Negroes ain't loyal. I'm not loyal to either party. I might be voting Democrat, I might be voting Republican, shoot, I might be independent, I might stay home. I don't know what I'm gonna do. But instead we get super loyal people that are like, yeah, we're loyal to you and we're gonna do whatever you say because we want to prove our loyalty, and you never get anything for it because you've allowed them to put you in a box. So I would say within Nkrumah, I think that his alignment with the socialist bloc, with Russia and China, made things harder for him than they needed to be. And I would say to you as black people, if you think about this, look at how many black folks are ready to beat each other up in the street because one person's a Democrat, the other one's a Republican. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen, because when you got business of your own, when you are a black man with a black family and running a black business and trying to feed your family and build your vision, you ain't got time to be sacrificing yourself for somebody else's vision. You're working toward your own. You're not aligning with a corporation and with a governmental entity or a political party. You're aligning with you and your people and your family, and that's it. That's the alignment. That's the only alignment that matters. That's my alignment. I don't care what political party you're in. I just don't. I want my people to eat. Period. So let me get, because white man's gonna make sure his people eat. Let's keep going. If you want to know the operation that took out Nkrumah, it was called Operation Cold Chop. And so the CIA basically capitalized on elite dissatisfaction and disloyalty within the military to organize the 1966 coup while Nkrumah was out of the country. So one mistake that experts say that he made is the over centralization of power. So he built a one-party state. He removed all of his political competition. He was pretty stern in the sense that he would incarcerate his political enemies, as opposed to finding some way to work with moderates that also might have the country's best interests at heart, but just might have a different vision. And that might go back to, if you think about Du Bois, I would probably say to him, why would you feel the need to fight with Marcus Garvey? What does Marcus Garvey's success do to really threaten you? And one of the things I can honestly tell you is that I've seen examples of that where you'll have a scholar who's got all the education in the world but ain't making that much money, and then they'll see some guy who ain't got no education at all who's making 100 times more than him, and then jealousy kicks in, and next thing you know, it's like, oh, he must be dirty, he must be corrupt because he's making more money than me. And I would probably say to Du Bois, I would say, yeah, I understand that you have differences and you may not like anything about what he does, but you probably have bigger fish to fry because white folks want to kill you both. So anyway, I think a multi-party coalition. I think that working with people that were different from him could have strengthened his positioning in Ghana and really undermined the ability of the outsiders to come in and take him out of power. But then again, it would be difficult. But I think if he had stuck with a simple philosophy. So for Nkrumah, the main philosophy was African unity. Pan-Africanism, I think, was the greatest part of his legacy. I would probably say to him, stick with that. Make it simple. Pan-Africanism, African unity, right? That means anybody who differs from you, you say, okay, I know you don't agree with me on this, agree with me on that, but do we agree that Africa should be unified and that we should strengthen our continent? If the answer is yes, then let's get we on the same page. Let's work together and make this happen. And this is one of the things about being black first. You can come to me and you can say, Boyce, I don't like the way you said this or said that, or I don't agree with you on this or agree with you on that. Well, my goal is when I'm in my right mind, when I'm as emotionally mature as I can be, none of us are perfect. My goal is to say, okay, but do you want black people to win? Do you want black families to be stronger? Yes or no? Do you want black people to be wealthier? Yes or no? Put it in the chat, actually. Give me a yes or no. Right? Do you want black people to be wealthier? Yes or no? Do you want them to be financially secure? Yes or no? Do you want black people to have healthier lives, like mentally and physically? Yes or no? Do you want black people to have better relationships with each other? Yes or no? Do you want black children to be protected? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then cool. Let's build around that, right? Let's not start the conversation with what we disagree on. Let's start with what we agree on. And then by the time we talk about all the things we agree on, we won't have the time or the energy to even get to the stuff we disagree on. Because I know I'm gonna disagree with you on something. Like me and my wife disagree on a lot. If you've seen me and my wife interact, you've seen times where me and her ain't the same in a lot of areas. I mean, heavy areas, right? But I start with the top. I say, well, do you agree that we want to be married and that we're better off with each other? And the answer is always yes, because I know she's better off having me by her side, and I know I'm better off having her by my side. So we start with that. We start at the top of the mountain instead of the bottom. We start with the primary issue instead of the secondary issue. Do you understand? You start with the make the first things first and the last things last, and half of us are ass backwards. We're making the last thing first and the first thing last. First thing should be the fact that as a community, you're getting your ass kicked. First thing should be that as a community, your wealth is being drained. They're locking your people up. You got no power. You get no respect. You're seen around the world as a bunch of clowns and idiots and buffoons. That's how they see us, right? So that's the issue. That's the unifying theme here. So the big question is like, do you want to do this or not? Are we going to improve or not? Are we going to seek the education or not? Are we going to seek the wealth or not? Am I going to try my best to love you or not? Are we going to try to build together or not? And if the answer is no, then that's another discussion. But for most of us, the answer is yes. So let me keep going here. Let me keep going. Another thing that Nkrumah did that I learned from in terms of mistakes was he really overlooked what was going on with his army and with his military. I think that you sometimes with leadership you can forget that you're only powerful because of the people that serve you and support you. And so I would encourage anybody who's running a business or heading a family or leading anything to always remember the importance of understanding how critically important it is for the people that support you to give you their support, to never take that for granted. I think that goes for anything. If you get married and you got a spouse that loves you, your loyalty needs to go to that spouse first. You should not take that for granted because next thing you know, bad things can happen. So a lot of experts have stated, and again, this is all debatable, that basically that if Nkrumah had maybe invested a little bit more in military education, had given them more financial benefits on some level, if he could have he set up some sort of African-centered command training, that type of thing, he could have built a stronger force. They would have been more loyal. And I know that some of his big economic plans failed. And this is the part that I would really want to get to. This is kind of the kicker in the finish line for most of this discussion. And this is the economics. Here's why I have a real issue with the fact that when you look at most black leadership, most black movements, they've been very left wing. This is something that you're not going to hear in a lot of places, but this is something I'll believe till I go to my grave. A lot of the opposition that black leaders have received throughout the years when they would go kill certain black leaders and stuff like that, we instantly and easily and directly attribute it solely to racism, which racism certainly plays a part. But it's not just the racism. A lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of our black leaders were finessed into aligning themselves with communist, socialist, Marxist agendas. If you look at the history of America, one thing America has hated as much, if not more than black people, is communist, socialist, Marxist ideologies. So a lot of the communist, socialist, Marxist ideologies, they come along and everybody's reading books by Karl Marx and everything else, and nothing wrong with that. Those are good ideas. And so next thing you know, you're black, but you're a black Marxist, and so that same person who hates you because you're a Marxist, you assume that they just hate you because you're black. Now, I'm not saying that being black is going to do you any favors, right? I'm not saying black is ever being black is an asset, but I am saying that there is a difference in how America views a black Marxist versus someone who's black and who's not a Marxist. Doesn't make it better or worse. I'm not saying that you should pick an ideology. I'm saying that that alignment with Marxism, the flaw with that is that then next thing you know, you're demonizing things that black people need because you're pursuing someone else's agenda. See Marxists can be white supremacists too, right? They can be communists can be oppressive too. So what happens is that when you align yourself, when you say instead of saying I'm black first, you say I'm Marxist. Then what happens is whatever enemies the Marxists have, you have to have those enemies too. So what happens is a black man, a brother comes up and says, "Hey, brother, we want to build our community. Pay attention now. Let me know if you're following this." So a black man comes along who doesn't want to be a Marxist and says, "Look, I'm not into to the politics, but hey, brother, why don't we open a grocery store together? Why don't we do some business so that we can get some income and revenue into our community, buy the block, feed our families, and take care of our people and establish an economic base?" Well, next thing you know, it's like, well, no, you're like those dirty capitalists, and those capitalists, they ain't nothing but vultures and none of. Well, I didn't say I was a capitalist. I just said to you that I understand the importance of having economic power, that any form of nation building requires an economic engine. Do y'all understand that? Give me, please, let me know, give me some feedback. Let me know. Do y'all understand this? That many of your movements have died because there was no economic engine. Does anybody understand? Because there was no economic thinker sitting around the table saying, how are we going to put money in this bitch? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you got to have somebody sitting down thinking, how can we get a source of income and revenue so that we ain't got to go back and beg these crackers for a damn job? How the hell are you going to talk about trying to be independent from white folks and overcome colonialism and everything else? And when you up here begging these same people to feed you and give you a job because they got really good at making money, but you never took the time to learn because you up here trying to be a Marxist. One thing Marxists are not that great at is building solid businesses that are sustainable. I'm not dissing the whole ideology. I'm not saying that they're bad. I have a lot of friends in that category. But if you look at most of them in terms of where they are economically, most of them don't have the type of economic power to really do what needs to be done. You can make money and not be a devil. Nobody said that because you're rich, you got to be evil. A lot of y'all in here are rich and you ain't evil. So stop believing that. So when somebody comes and tells you that money is the devil and money is bad and having money is bad, they're demonizing the very thing that you need the most. They're blocking you from the thing that's going to liberate you. The reason they enslave you is because of the economics. Half you are training your children to go work for white folks because Massa's the only one that can pay bills in your house. Half y'all black men don't get no respect from your woman because that white boss of hers is paying her more money than you can generate, right? A lot of y'all are living in extreme financial anxiety and putting up with all kinds of nonsense at the job because you need that money to survive. So I'll be damned if you're ever going to tell me that the number one issue for black people is not economic oppression. So when you walk around and you're like, I'm Marxist first, the problem is that if you get into this ugly habit of demonizing anybody that knows how to make a damn dollar, then you're gonna be sitting out here broke, trying to start a revolution and ain't got no money. First thing people do when they declare war is they fund the damn war. The Israelis are out here bombing everybody like a pack of assholes. I'm sorry, Israel's messed up with their policy. I'm sorry if I offended anybody. That policy is crazy, and they're doing it. Why? Well, because the United States government funds between 10 and 20% of their military budget every year. So you have to have money if you're going to fight a war. You have to have money if you're going to defend yourself. You're going to have money if you go to war with the devil. Because you build a Black Wall Street, yes, he's going to come and burn it. So you got a choice. Are you going to go build a monument and cry about it and say, "Oh, dang it, they did it again. Look at what they did. They always do this stuff. They always do this." That sounds like you sound like a punk right now. All you're doing is sitting here celebrating what they did. You're making them proud that they can demoralize you that easily. No, what you say is, here's what you do. Here's what you show up military minded. A lot of y'all get this. You show up and you say, "Yeah, I know what you're gonna do. Yeah, I know you're gonna fight dirty. Yeah, I know you're gonna undermine everything that we do. I know that every step is gonna be difficult, but it's all right because I'm tougher than you. I will outlast the competition. I'm tougher than you. I'm smarter than you. I'm more prepared than you. And when we work together, we're gonna have more skill than you. So bring it on, son of a bitch." That's what you do. That's how you fight. You don't sit around and constantly hear about your heroes and say, "Oh yeah, the CIA did it. Yeah, they always be doing that. That's what they always be doing. They always be taking us out." Right? That's not what you do when you're trying to win a fight. You say, "Yeah, they did that. That was bad. What can we learn from this? How do we keep this from happening next time?" Do you understand? There's a difference. All right. Before I move on, just a reminder, our effort to do this every year, we have the All Black National Convention. A lot of you know about it. I hope you'll choose to come to Atlanta. It's in Atlanta, Georgia, August 21st to the 23rd. It's the largest gathering on earth of intelligent Black people who are committed to solving our problems, building our families, building our wealth, etc. This year, we're partnering with the National Business League, run by Dr. Ken Harris. We're going to have thousands of people together. There are people from all over the diaspora that are coming in, and it's going to be amazing. So if you want to find people you can build with, just go to allblacknationalconvention.com. Allblacknationalconvention.com. It's August 21st to the 23rd. Right now, I'm in Ghana. I think the next trip we take, I know we're going to do one to DC next year, and I'll let you guys know. But I think I want to do Ethiopia. I'm just telling you guys first. Ethiopia, I talked to Jay Cameron, who helped to organize a lot of this. He's Maximum Impact Travel. That's the name of his company. And we talked about Ethiopia, and I think Ethiopia is going to be next on the list. So I hope you'll join us. We'll try to incentivize it. Maybe what we'll do is anybody that wants to come on the trip, we'll give you $500 worth of free classes in the Black Business School or something like that to help subsidize the cost. But we'll do something for you to make it worth your while because I really want a critical mass here. I want I want us to be in this space and I want us having fun. I want us connecting, but I want us learning and building, learning and building. There's lessons everywhere. The universe is a freaking textbook. The world is a textbook. So when I'm in there and I'm looking through Nkrumah's life and I'm taking notes and thinking things through and processing and comparing and connecting dots, and then I go in and I look at Du Bois's life and I'm meditating on his life and looking through everything. It's really fascinating when you see these insights because I really think Black leadership. I think if we evolve it in a certain way, then we're going to become the winners. We don't always have to be the losers. There's no rule about that. All right, so let's keep going here. All right, so here are a couple more issues with Nkrumah in terms of running Ghana and being knocked out of power by the CIA in the 1960s, and just some things that maybe to consider in terms of areas where things could be done better. So remember, I mentioned that Nkrumah was a Marxist. I don't think that had to happen that way. He went to the United States. Most American universities are heavily left leaning. So when you go to a lot of white universities, you get indoctrinated into ideologies that are very leftist. For example, one of my kids went to Columbia. She gained a lot of ideologies that were very left. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what it is, right? And so he goes to the University of Pennsylvania and he gets exposed to a lot of leftist ideas. And so here's the problem. Another problem with Marxism is so they had financial problems because they had this budget. And one of the things that happens, and I say this as a finance professor, is that people who don't understand money and business and building businesses, they tend to idealize things sometimes in the sense that they'll think that all this money is just going to come out of thin air. Or like, for example, they'll think something like that you can just print as much money as you want because they don't understand the dynamics of things like inflation and how that can actually ruin the value of the currency. Or they'll say, we'll just take over all these factories and we're going to just, and they'll lay out a nice utopian vision that we're going to make sure everybody gets an equal share and this, that, and the other. But they haven't thought through the impact on incentives, economic incentives, and capital allocation that can actually cause you to destroy the business, right? So effectively, one of the things that I found when I really studied Nkrumah in terms of where they were at financially is that a lot of the businesses that they started did not do so well, right? Like one of them was like a shipping cargo line kind of thing, similar to the Black Star Line started by Marcus Garvey. And so, so one challenge with Afrocentric Marxism is that they're very good at shaping a utopian vision of everybody being equal and everything else, which sounds great in theory, but when it comes to actually translating that into tangible realities for the people, they're not as great at that. And so what happens is you have a great, beautiful vision, everybody buys into it, but then you're not the people ain't eating right. Like at the end of the day, if you can't feed the people at a level that is satisfactory, they're going to get disgruntled. I believe if he had partnered, if he had taken the Pan-Africanist ideology, even with the Marxism included, right, or just the fairness for all, which I certainly agree with 100%, and they gotten with some people that know the nuts and bolts, gotten with the Garveys, gotten with the Booker T's, and the people that know how to actually build businesses and build industry and work with the individuals like that, then you're talking about true nation building. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like if I got a pie in the sky vision, and a lot of you are visionaries, well, when you have a vision, that's fine, but you need to have some people around you that can implement that vision in a meaningful and practical way. You need somebody who can build the factory, build the roads, build the houses, build the businesses, make them profitable, make sure all everything's managed properly, right? You need a round table. It cannot be one guy being the man and then a bunch of people just sitting around enjoying how great the vision sounds. You need people that really are going to actually implement that thing, that will program a computer or do whatever is required, hit a hammer, whatever. Steve Jobs, when he had the vision of starting Apple, he had Wozniak, I think that was his name, who knew how to build freaking circuit boards and create a product that could actually be taken to market and sold for a markup and allow them to make money. Do you understand? So I think that having that technical class and training up our young people. I believe black children should be educated by black people first and foremost, because white people do nothing but miseducate them. If you're white, I'm sorry if this offends you, but you are the colonizer and you've been doing this for hundreds of years. I believe black people should be educated by black children should be educated by black people, and I would love it if and believe me, if I get $1 billion, this is what you're going to see implemented. I don't know if I can ever get that kind of money, but I'd love to get $1 billion because what I would do is I would implement schools around the country that train very basic curricula that would allow us to systematize excellent educational achievement with every child being highly skilled in their particular interest, their particular skill set that's going to add value to what we're trying to do. Because one of the problems that you have with colonialism in America and beyond is that you have too many Negroes that are trained to work for white folks and chase jobs, and they have no clue what it takes to actually build a business or build an industry or build a nation. Right. So your pie in the sky ideologies that you may get from the university, they sound good in theory, but when it comes to the practical reality of you being able to feed yourself, that's when you fall short. You can't feed yourself without the white man doing it because he's the one that knows how to create the farm and build the building and sell the product and raise the capital. So you should have those same skills. And I think that having people around like that might have been beneficial. And also, there was a couple other things. Another one was his Pan-Africanist vision, which was very broad. Some people say that the people of Ghana kind of felt left behind from that, that their own needs weren't being met, that he was sort of looking at the bigger picture of Africa and not so much on the smaller picture of what was happening to the Ghanaians around him. Because if you remember, that's where the revolt took place. It took place with people rolling tanks into Accra, and taking his spot. And that started and ended primarily in Ghana with some outside support for those who were going to fund those who are disgruntled with you, etc. So sometimes if you have a vision, what I would say to you, this maybe what the lesson to learn from that would be, in my view, rather than focusing on the big picture, try to make sure the little picture gets filled in first. I have people that come to me all the time and they'll say, Dr. Boyce, I have this idea that's going to, increase black wealth by $1 billion in the next 5 years. And I'll say, okay, that's great. I said, but I'll say, before you make $1 billion, can you go make $10? Before you make $10, can you make $1? A lot of times, if we are focused so much on what's happening over here and over there and outside of our home, sometimes you'll see people, and this happens a lot. There are lots of people. Have you ever seen, tell me if you've seen this, somebody who goes out and conquers the world, but when you come back to their house is a mess. Their children are on drugs. Their wife is sleeping with the gardener. Maybe their physical and mental health is falling apart because they're out here doing everything for everybody else and they're out here taking care of this bigger picture, but they didn't understand the importance of starting with the little picture. So what I would encourage you to do is not. I actually am a person who says, yeah, we can have some inductive thinking. We can think big, but then want to have some deductive thinking. I want us to think small. I want us to go back to the basics. What are you doing every single morning when you wake up every day? What are you going to be doing tomorrow? What are you doing with those children, those beautiful multi-million dollar assets that are in your life? What are you doing every day with those kids? What are you doing every day to make an extra $100, $200 a month, $500 a month, $1,000 a month? Those are the steps that you take to eventually become the millionaire that you want to be. And by doing that, you're building that foundation that then grows into something bigger. So some would say that to some extent, when Nkrumah is focused on all of Africa, unifying all of Africa, a critic might come along and say, well, have you even unified all of Ghana? Do you understand? Like you've talked about how we can bring all of our houses together, but have you figured out what's happening inside your own house? Because that's what gets you. It's always the little stuff that gets you. All right. Last but not least, there's something going back to the leadership style, what they call messianic leadership. And some would say that that can actually isolate you, where you have they call it servant leader models, or sorry, not the servant leader model of leadership, one where you don't take on the role of the Messiah. They say studies show that that's more effective than the messianic role, where I show up and I'm all grandiose and I'm wearing a crown and I'm telling you how important I am and how I'm more important than you. Um, there are other models that involve what you might refer to as peer accountability, and really understanding like, yeah, okay, I know that I'm the leader because I have a certain set of skills that allow my competence to add to the mission, but at the same time, we all gonna get dirty together, and I'm going to empower you so that if I can't lead anymore, I know that you know what the assignment is and you feel equity in the overall mission. Do you understand? You're not doing the Chicago Bulls used to have a problem where there was a time where when Michael Jordan couldn't win championships at all. He couldn't win no championships. And the reason he couldn't win championships was because he was so good that there would be times where he would get the ball and the other teammates would just sit around and watch him score. They would just wait to see what he did. So they didn't do anything. They didn't play defense much. They didn't box out. They didn't wait for the loose ball. Nobody would go for the rebound. They would just sit and watch him. And so the team lived or died with Jordan's productivity. And so what basically happened though was Jordan learned that in order for me to win and us to win, then I've got to empower my teammates. I've got to help them get in position to take the open shot. I've got to make them feel confident taking over when in spaces that I can't. If I get triple teamed, I want to know that I can pass the ball to you and know that you can hit that open jumper. And so by empowering his teammates, he empowered himself. And that's when Jordan started winning championships. He had to engage in a form of character development in order to be the kind of leader that would allow the Bulls to become the amazing dynasty that they were. So my point is to say that I would dare argue that sometimes when we get trapped into having this messiah, like some guy who's like, I'm the man and I'm the alpha and everybody, and I've seen that. I'll never forget, I'll never forget when I met Umar Johnson. He called himself King Kong Consciousness. And I thought that was the weirdest thing in the world. I was like, what, that's weird. That's crazy. Like, what, huh? Or when I met Kanye West, I told you about that when he told me he was the most important person on earth next to Vladimir Putin. I don't understand that because what you're doing is you're feeding ego, which is a sign of emotional immaturity, in my view. That means you still, whatever it is that was happening inside you as a little boy that had an insecurity is still there, and you're feeding into that insecurity by saying, "Look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm important. I'm the man. I'm relevant. Nobody else matters. I'm the man. I'm important. I'm better than you." Right? And really, that actually, in my view, causes significant problems in black leadership. But then on top of that, it's even worse when you have a community that doesn't have the self-esteem that we should have. So when you have people that have, low self-esteem and they're looking up at the Messiah and they believe he's the Messiah because he presents himself as the Messiah. He always wears the nicest suits. He drives the nicest car. He's the tallest man in the room. He's the one who's got the most charisma. He's the one who's wearing the crown every time you see him. So people will buy into that. Like people will really start believing that you're important because you're presenting yourself that way. But then what happens though is that you have a dysfunctional form of leadership. You literally have all this pressure on one guy trying to do everything by himself because he's surrounded by a bunch of people who are just sitting there watching. So my argument would be that if we really want to win, we need all hands on deck. The best way for any of this, I have a vision. My vision is Project 2070, where I believe that by 2070, B1 people can lead the world when it comes to economic achievement. I do believe that economic power, economic strength, economic intelligence. By 2070, that's when it's going to happen, and we're well on our way. We're years ahead of our target deadline on this, and I know for a fact that I cannot do this without you. I cannot, if I can't get you to get off the couch, then I have failed. If I can't get you to change the way you're teaching your kids, then I have failed. If I can't get you to take some action, if I can't get you to even buy your first share of stock, then I have failed. So when I'm talking to you and I'm saying, "Hey, let's do this. Come on, what are we going to do today?" I'm begging you to do this because I know that I am limited in terms of what I can do. I only have so much money. I only have so much time. I'm 54 years old. I might not be here tomorrow. I don't know when my last day on this earth is going to be. So I'm pouring into you as much as I can because I know that based on the mathematics that if I spend that energy pouring into you and then you take that and you activate even a fraction of that and we do this at scale, then that's when we start taking this sucker over. That's when we start winning. Do you understand? Do you get what I'm saying? Does this make sense? I hope I didn't overtalk it. I know I probably sound like an arrogant prick just talking like crazy about this, but this is what I believe. I believe that we can learn from black historical figures, but I think we got to get away from putting people on a pedestal and making them into these untouchable giants that are beyond reproach and beyond criticism, as if their models were the absolute best models available for Black advancement. I don't think that they are. I think that these are models that are supposed to be critiqued. You're supposed to learn. When you have a great leader that gets shot or murdered by the CIA, you should go back and say, okay, well, that's one area where he didn't check that box. Something went wrong there. There was a failure in the system here that allowed this to happen. You shouldn't just assume that um, any black person who does something great is supposed to die. Like that's a defeatist mindset. No, they're supposed to live. They're supposed to flourish. They're supposed to succeed. So how do we make that happen? We do that by all of us working together and deciding what we're trying to do. So my last point on this, and then I'm gonna be done for tonight because we got to get up in a few hours. And this is my wife. Hold on a second. Hey, babe, I, can I get an extra? y- y- Hey, I am live right now. You need something? Okay, babe. I'm go to the front desk and get it. Yeah, let me call you back. I need a couple minutes. Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you can schedule for Friday. All right. I love you. Bye bye. Sorry. Okay. All right, sorry about that. All right, so here's my last point on this. Here's how here's how I think we can really win. Luckily, we don't have to have a whole bunch of people die. We don't have to have a whole bunch of people go to jail. The ancestors made that sacrifice for us, and I think we should be grateful for that. Also, remember that by living in the United States, as much as there are problems with this country, you are blessed beyond belief. You go to other countries and you see little children begging on the street, or you find out that anybody who makes over $60,000 a year, you're in the top 1% of all earners on the planet. That means you've got something to work with. African American people are very wealthy people, whether you know it or not. So, what I would say to you is the answer, in my view, is not some big overarching vision where there's some charismatic guy or woman that comes along and just leads us all to the promised land. I don't believe in that form of black leadership. It has never worked. The solution starts with household by household, implementing certain standards that will allow us and our children to be able to win. If one family wins, and that ideology becomes contagious, and that message is shared to 100,000 families, and they all do the same thing, then we succeed. It is not hard, for example, for one black person to have a net worth higher than the average white person. That is not hard to do. The mathematics are very simple. A lot of you are investing in the stock market. You keep doing that consistently, you're going to have more money than white people. So if the answer is that simple, then why don't we pursue the simpler solution? The way you make the B1, the way you make the whole community more powerful than everyone else is you start person by person, family by family, group by group. So I can tell you, given that the economics is the number one source of oppression for black people, that mastering the economics should be the top priority. When you master the economics, there is no white person anywhere that's going to stop you from buying that share of stock. There's no white person going to stop you from starting that business. There's no white person that's going to stop you from saving for your family. There's no white person that's going to stop you from educating yourself and educating your kids. So that is your entry point. That's your opportunity. You don't have to fight for that. That's available to you, and all you got to do is go take it. But then also, the educational piece kicks in the sense of getting rid of unhealthy ideas that are very anti-wealth. For example, the way we look at children, we look at black children as a nuisance, and having kids is a pain in the ass and just not worth the time. No, children are an investment. Children, if you invest in them and pour in them to them properly, that can be your key to immortality. That can also be your key to tremendous amounts of wealth, because wealth comes from labor. Children provide labor. You just have to be able to target that energy into a structure, a family business that you have created in the previous generation. So all these little rules, there's blueprints everywhere on how this works. And once you get that power, you don't have to go fight a war for that. Nobody has to die for that, but you're gonna have to make a sacrifice. So the question is, what are you willing to sacrifice for? If you sacrifice, then you'll win. If you won't sacrifice, then you'll never win anything. So that's my 2 cents. That's my belief. Okay, guys. So I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And once again, I'm not critiquing Kwame Nkrumah ever. I can't do that. I'm not qualified for that. But when I looked at his life and I just saw what happened, I was like, interesting. Okay, so there's a lot we can learn here. So I say in the next generation, black leadership has to look different. And I believe that if we do it the right way, I believe that we can really do some amazing stuff. So anyway, have a good night, everybody. God bless you. And if you're not on the text list for this class, we do meet every morning at 10 a.m. We're not gonna meet tomorrow because I'm gonna be headed over to Elmina Castle. I've been there, the point of no return. We're gonna go there tomorrow, and I'll probably shoot up some content to let you guys see what's happening. So if you're not on the text list for the class, text the word morning to the number 87948. Text morning to 87948. I also have a book called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. It's an Amazon bestseller, so thank you guys for supporting the book. I think we probably sold over 100,000 copies now. If you'd like to read it with your family, there's also companion flashcards that go with it. So you can go to drboycebooks.com. That's drboycebooks.com. The book is called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. God bless you. Have a good night. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate you very much. See you soon.